So the Bhagavad-gita is actually an excerpt from a larger work by Srila Vyasadeva called the Mahabharata, which chronicles the activities of the Pandavas. These were 5 very pious princes who were destined to rule the world, and their cousins, the sons of Dhritarashtra. And the Pandavas were the sons of King Pandu, but he died before they became of age to take over the kingdom. Yudhisthira, the oldest, was in line for the throne, but because of his young age, his uncle Dhritarashtra assumed the throne until he became of age to rule. Dhritarashtra, although actually the older brother of King Pandu, was not fit to be the king because he was blind from birth. And unfortunately, he wasn't only materially blind, but he was also spiritually blind. He was blinded by desires for material enjoyment, blinded by self-centeredness, blinded by lust and greed. Yet due to the circumstances, he was put in the position of regent until the Yudhisthira became of age. Meanwhile, he also had 100 sons, headed by Duryodhana. And Duryodhana and his siblings were very ambitious and greatly desired to usurp the kingdom away from the Pandavas so that they could rule the world and enjoy the position of being the kings. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-gita that any time that there is a rise in irreligion, that he will come personally to set things right. When these kings get overpowerful, and it's kind of like our situation we have nowadays, right? They have all these nuclear weapons, they have all this stuff, and they're just itching to use it. It's just like they got nothing better to do. So they've lost all interest in caring for their citizens. They're just simply interested in their self-aggrandizement and getting power for themselves and putting down the other guys. You know, it's just a mess. So that was kind of the situation then.
Okay.
And so Krishna came personally to set things right and to reestablish a proper pious kings. In the Vedic culture, society was divided up into 4 basic categories. You had the Brahmins, and they were considered the head of society. So the Brahmins were the teachers, and they taught everything. They taught everything from the liberal arts to the military arts to how to maintain sanitary systems in a city, things like that. The Brahmins were the head, so they're considered like the head of society. Then the Kshatriyas, or the rulers, or the kings, they're considered the arms of society. They protect society. That's their actual role. And they're subservient to the Brahmins. They're supposed to get instructions from the Brahmins, and according to those instructions from the Brahmins and the Vedic teachings, then they rule accordingly. Then under that, you have the Vaishya class. The Vaishyas are the merchants. The bankers, they engage in banking, agriculture, trade, things like that. And they're compared to the belly of society. They feed everyone. Then you have the Sudra class, which is the worker class. And they actually assist the other 3 classes in keeping society going. And it's not like one class is necessarily higher than the other in terms of value, but it's just a natural division according to one's propensities and one's inclination. So that's been perverted nowadays. In India, for example, the Sudras are considered the untouchables, right? And they're considered low class and all this kind of thing. But that's actually in the Vedic culture, that wasn't the case. everyone was actually considered equal parts and parcels of God, and they should all be respected and taken care of. And they all work together, just as these different parts of the body. The Sudras are compared to the legs, the Vaishyas to the stomach, the Kshatriyas to the arms, and the Brahmins to the head. And all these different limbs work together for the benefit of the entire body. And that's the way things are supposed to work. But if you have a situation where the arms are not seeing themselves as being a servant of the body, but instead they want to be the entire enjoyer of everything, then everything gets out of whack and we have all these problems. And that was the situation then as it is now. So Krishna comes, and one of his reasons for coming was to reestablish the Pandavas as the rightful kings. So they tried everything. The Pandavas tried to negotiate with the Dhritarashtra and his sons, Duryodhana and his siblings. But Duryodhana and his siblings were so intent on usurping the kingdom that they finally said, we will not give you enough land to stick a pin in to rule, right? You're just going to have to live as beggars in the forest if you're going to live at all. And so it came down to this point where it was going to have to be decided by warfare. So everyone took sides. This was like a world war, basically. And so everyone either took the side of the Pandavas or they took the side of Dhritarashtra. And due to political reasons, obligations, even some of the very intimate teachers of the Pandavas, Bhishma Dev and Drona, for example, ended up on the side of Dhritarashtra for political reasons, even though they were very close in their, like Bhishma had raised the Pandavas since Pandu died, and it was like their grandfather to them. So it was very painful for him to be on the opposite side of the battle. And so now everything has come to a head. And Krishna actually had this huge army because he was also a king living in Dwarka. But he wasn't going to personally fight in the battle. But he gave the choice. He says, one of you can have my army and the other can have me on their side. And Dhritarashtra, of course, chose Krishna's army, thinking, get all these soldiers and elephants and all this kind of stuff is much better than having Krishna on my side. And Arjuna and the rest of the Pandavas, of course, were delighted to have Krishna on their side, even though he wasn't going to fight. And so now the battle's about to take place, and they're all assembled at this place called Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra was this place of pilgrimage where previously Parasaram had killed all the Kshatriyas 21 times because, again, they had gotten out of hand and weren't listening to the Brahmins. And they actually were stealing the property of the Brahmins and taking it for themselves. And so this was a very pious place. And so they were going to have this battle on Kurukshetra, the Battle of Kurukshetra, it's called. So everyone's assembled there and the battle's just about to start. And Arjuna is there and Krishna is driving his chariot, which is actually pretty amazing when you consider that the chariot driver is actually considered a Sudra. It's a Sudra position. Yet here is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's taken the position of being Arjuna's servant in this circumstance. And so Arjuna asked Krishna to take him into the middle of the battlefield so he can see who's there, who's so intent on fighting. And so Krishna pulls this chariot up and says, these two great armies. And Arjuna's there and he's looking out and he's seeing that on one side are all the people that he cares about, all of his relatives and friends and family members and things like that, all of his. And then on the other side, on Dhritarashtra's side, he sees not only his cousins and his uncle, but he also sees Bhishma and Drona, these great teachers that he has great reverence for. And he just starts to become overwhelmed with the immensity of what's about to happen. And he starts realizing that this is a fight to the death. And there's going to be millions of people killed. And when these people are killed, all these men are killed, what happens? Well, all their wives become widows, right? And all of their children are suddenly without fathers. And now there's no guidance in society, right? There's no role models for the young people to grow up with. And Arjuna's thinking, wow, this is a tragedy, right? All this is going to happen here. We're trying to rule the kingdom because we want to make things better for people. But now, because of this battle, it's actually going to make things worse. And he actually had a bit of a nervous breakdown. And he told Krishna, he said, what are we doing here? You know, here we are. We're supposed to be the protectors of society. And here we're about to engage in this ghastly warfare that's going to wipe out so many people. It's going to cause all these orphans. It's going to cause a total disruption of society. How can this be good? It's better if instead I just give up my kingdom, give up my rights to the kingdom, go to the forest and live as a beggar. Right? Arjuna is a very soft-hearted and compassionate person. Right? He cares about people. He has no desire to be the ruler of the planet. Right? His only desire is to serve, and to serve for the benefit of all living creatures, not just the human beings, but a proper Kshatriya king rules in such a way that even the animals are taken care of. In Vedic society, cow killing was not allowed. The cows were protected. The cows are actually considered the seventh mother because they give milk and sustenance to the humans. So Arjuna, being a very soft-hearted and compassionate person, he says, forget it. It's not worth it. And so this sets the stage for the Bhagavad-gita to be spoken. Because here he is. Everything's ready to happen. And he can't do it. He drops his bow. He's crying. He's just falling apart. He's a mess. And he finally says, Krishna, I can't do this. Please tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. And so then Krishna, who is there as the servant of Arjuna, he's driving his chariot, right? Now assumes the role of the spiritual master. And as the spiritual master, it's his duty to instruct Arjuna. And so, the first thing he does is he kind of gives Arjuna a little wake-up call, gives him a little slap. It says, while speaking learned words, you're actually mourning for things that are not worthy of grief. And then he goes on to explain how you're not the body, right? When you actually analyze what caused this battle, what caused this battle is people like Dhritarashtra and his sons, Duryodhana, are thinking that I am this physical body. And I will become satisfied if I satisfy the demands of this body. Right? If I have a nice palace to live in, and I have lots of wives, and I have lots of amazing things to eat and drink, and I get to order everybody around and tell them what to do, then I'm going to be happy. Right? And basically, this is everyone's position in modern society. Everyone is thinking, I am this body. I am a man. I am a woman. I am young. I am old. I'm American. I'm Indian. I'm a Hindu. I'm a Muslim. right? I'm a Christian. But these are all just labels that pertain to this temporary physical body. But the fact is that as soon as the body's born, it's begun its journey to death. This body's very temporary. At the most, it's going to last 100 years. But, as Krishna points out to Arjuna, you're not the body. You are the eternal spirit soul that's residing within this temporary material body. And it's only because you're identifying with the body and the things in relation to the body that you're thinking there's a problem here. Because, as he explains, for the soul, there's never birth nor death. The soul is eternal. And so if you realize that the soul is eternal, then how can you kill anybody? Really? You can't kill anybody because they're eternal. You can only kill the temporary material body that they happen to be living in. So Arjuna is there, he's lamenting that Bhishma, his teacher, and Drona, his teacher, and all these people are going to be killed. But Krishna is pointing out that's not actually the case. Nobody's going to be killed. They're simply going to lose the opportunity of using this body, and they're going to have to take another birth according to their karma. And so that it's not the end of everything, right? To be killed like that. Now, that's not to say, this brings in, so Arjuna starts asking questions. Well, if that's true, then what are we doing here? Right? If nothing matters like that, if this is just all a temporary existence and we're all eternal, then if these guys are kings or we're kings, what does it really matter? So this sets the stage for Arjuna's education. And actually, Arjuna is a very dear devotee of Krishna, and he actually already knows all these things. But Krishna has put him into a state of temporary ignorance so that he can ask these questions, so that we can hear the answers and then apply these answers into our own life and apply them in society. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Why did Krishna have an army?
Go ahead.
Why did Krishna have an army? Why did Krishna have an army to start with?
Oh, okay. That's it.
Right. Yeah.
As we said, Krishna's one of his reasons for coming to this planet was because it was overburdened with these military strength. All these different kings had all these different military phalanxes, and they were up there and they were causing a disturbance in society. So Krishna, although he first appeared in Vrindavan, where he lived as a simple cowherd boy, then after he later got moved to Mathura and then Dwarka, where he got married and then lived as a king, a Kshatriya king. Then as a king, he put together an army and started fighting with these belligerent kings and wiping out their armies so that they couldn't cause a disturbance in society. So, why does Krishna need an army? Why does God need an army? The answer is he doesn't.
Yeah.
God can do anything just simply by willing it, right? The most amazing thing is how in this life we develop tunnel vision. You know what tunnel vision is?
Mm-hmm.
right? We just become focused on a very small aspect of what's really going on. Everyone is so busy trying to maintain their life or their position in life that they lose sight of the big picture. There's a saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? When you're stuck, when you're lost in a forest, you have no idea where the boundaries are, right? You're just in there and it's just one tree after another, and you go and you try to get out and you end up just going in circles. You just get totally bewildered. But if you actually step back and look at things, for example, take your own body, for example. Incredible. Starts out as a single-celled organism, an egg in the uterus of a woman, right? Then the sperm is injected by the male. These two come together, and then the cell divides. A single cell divides into two. Then those cells divide, and those cells divide, and those cells divide. And some cells become bone cells. Some cells become blood cells. Some cells become nerves. Some cells become brain tissue. Some cells become the eyes. Some become the hair. How does that happen? Huh? How does that happen?
We don't know.
Nobody knows, right? It's incredible.
Sitting as miracles.
Yeah.
And not only that, so then your body, it forms, right? Gestates for 9 months and develops in the womb. Then birth happens. You guys know more about that than I do, probably. And then you're out there, and then you're taking in food, right? And you're digesting things, and you're breathing, and all this stuff. And then your heart is beating. Are you sitting there controlling your heart beating? No, it's just doing it automatically. Right? Your lungs are going up and down. Your heart is beating. Their hormones are doing all this stuff. The whole endocrine system is producing all these hormones that are regulating all these different aspects of the body, all without you even being aware of it, much less controlling it. It's incredible. And this is just your one little body. There are 7 billion bodies like yours on this planet right now. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Then you start to think of the insects. The insects outweigh the humans. Isn't that? And these insects are amazing.
Just in terms of mass, like biomass, you mean, outweigh the humans?
Yes, in biomass, they outweigh the humans. If you took all the humans and put them in a big pile up on a scale and weighed them, and then took all the insects and weighed them, the insects would outweigh the humans.
Wow.
Right? And not only that, you take something like a mosquito, right? This tiny little bug. They're so small, right? They can fly. And not only can they fly, they're smart enough to know where you can see them and where you can't see them. Yeah? And they sneak in around and they find all these places to bite you and get your blood so they can take care of their eggs and reproduce and whatever else. Okay? Can you imagine trying to build something like a mosquito? You can't even conceive of it. You know, the material scientists are so proud of themselves for building rocket ships or cell phones or whatever, right? But ask them to make a simple mosquito, and they're totally lost. But Krishna makes mosquitoes without even thinking about it, all right? And the mosquitoes are huge compared to the microorganisms that are going on. You start going down into the soil and all the microorganisms there that are going on that keep all of the trees and the plants and everything going, right? It's just incredible. Here in Hawaii, I live in Hawaii, by the way, we have these things called geckos. You've seen the Geico commercials?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the geckos we have. They're beautiful, right? It's this lizard. It's about this long, bright green, red and blue. It's got like this iridescent blue eye makeup on, right? How does that fit in with survival of the fittest? It makes no sense at all, right? It's just incredible, these things going on. These geckos, they lay eggs. They go find these little holes in your walls and stuff, and they go in there, they lay these eggs, and they go away. These eggs hatch out, and this little gecko comes out. He's like, 3/4 of an inch long, maybe an inch long at the most. And boom, all of a sudden, here I am. I'm a gecko in this house somewhere. Instantly, he knows how to find bugs and not eat them. And he can walk up the walls, and he can walk on the ceiling, and he can do all these things that we can't do. How is that possible? No one taught him how to do any of that stuff, right? This is because Krishna enters into every atom, and he enters into every living entity, into the heart as the Paramatma, the super soul, and he gives us direction. So that's how the mosquitoes know how to hassle you. That's how the geckos know how to get their food, right? That's how all the plants know how to grow. I look out over this yard out here. I've got to live in a rainforest. And it looks so lush and peaceful out there. You think, oh, so nice here. Just relax. It's so relaxing just to look out the window and see everything going on. It's a war zone out there. The birds are eating the bugs. The cats are eating the birds. This tree is trying to outgrow that tree so it can get the sunlight and shade that one out, right? You got these funguses that are killing all the ohia trees. It's just this battle constantly going on. You got these different types of ants that are having these major battles trying to take over the different territories. You got these things called little fire ants. You know what little fire ants are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh, yes. We talked about them.
Well, you've met them?
Yes.
You can barely see these guys, right? And they can cause so much havoc. There's billions of them just out in a couple of acres. And they got this whole society going on. It's just incredible. All this is going on. And we don't even think about it. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-gita, all of this is just a spark of my splendor. And this is just one little planet, one little planet in one little universe. And there's countless universes. So why does Krishna need an army? He can do all this just by willing it, right? So the answer is Krishna doesn't need an army. Krishna doesn't need to come to this planet to set things right. The reason he comes to this planet and he performs these activities, they're called his pastimes, is so that we can get to know him. So we can actually come to know who we are. And so that we can actually come to experience the real love that we're looking for. Everyone is the same. We're all looking for love. From the very time when you're this tiny little baby, right? First thing you come out and your mother's there and she takes you to her breast and you think, I'm okay, right? I'm okay. Everything's okay for now. But then within a very short time, this little innocent baby, the fangs start to come out. And they start manipulating the mother and the parent and the father and the parents, right? And they just got them wrapped around their little finger. And they make them do this and they make them do that, right? And they quickly learn how to fake cry and all this kind of stuff, right? It's incredible. Crazy. I've got 2 little granddaughters right now. One's 5 and the other is 1. The youngest one, Veda, man, she is a terror when she wants to be, you know? She has a set of lungs on her like you would not believe. And if she's not getting what she wants, you know about it, right? She doesn't want to go to sleep. You're not getting any sleep. It's just, she's the king of the castle, right? How is that? How is that? But the fact is, we all come, we're all looking for love. But we have this problem. We know that we don't really have anything to offer anyone, right? Who am I? What have I got? I'm nothing. I'm a helpless spirit soul lost in the material world, looking for love in all the wrong places. But we have this desire. We have this desire to love. So what do? We start looking for reasons that we're lovable. So we think, oh, what can make me lovable? Okay. Am I beautiful? People like beauty, right? Maybe that's why people will love me, because I'm beautiful. Or maybe people will love me if I'm strong. Or maybe people will love me if I'm intelligent. Or maybe people will love me if I'm good. So I start hanging all these little ornaments on me to try to make myself lovable. But we all know in the core of our heart that it's just a house of cards. And at some point, it's just going to collapse. Because this body, all these things are built on the body, right? My body may be beautiful now, but will be beautiful 50 years from now. My body may be strong now, but will be strong 50 years from now. I may be intelligent now, but what happens when Alzheimer's sets in? Or dementia? All these things. We have all these false soldiers that we try to take shelter of to find our protection in this world. And we try to hide behind these things. But we really know in the core of our heart that it's not working. And so we're lonely, and we're afraid, and we're empty. And so we try to reach out and we try to make these relationships and we try to find love in this world, but we always get disappointed. The person leaves me, or the person dies, or I get disillusioned in them and leave them, right? It never works out. Think back to your first love. How amazing that was, right? Just wow. Everything's rainbows and unicorns. It's just amazing. And then how did that end? Tragically. Heart ripped out, stomped on the ground. And this happens again and again and again and again. And so we start to build these little walls and shields around our heart. we very quickly learn that we can't trust anyone in this world. Because as soon as we do, we get taken advantage of and disappointed. So this is our position. We find ourselves in this world. We're looking for perfect love. We're looking for perfect peace. We're looking for perfect happiness. But we can't find it anywhere. So we make ourselves busy, right? Find things to keep ourselves busy so we don't have to think about how empty I am inside. But not only are you a eternal spirit soul, you are part and parcel of Krishna, the Supreme Soul. And you have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. And if we simply reestablish that lost loving relationship with God, with Krishna, or Jehovah, whatever name you want to use for him, then you will find that you can achieve the satisfaction that you are looking for. And only through this relationship of love with God can you achieve that purpose of your life that's driving you forward. So this is really why Krishna comes to this planet. He comes to teach us how to find real love, real happiness, real purpose in our life. Instead of just filling it up with all this temporary distractions until we're forced at the time of death to take on another body according to our karma. So the Bhagavad-gita is a wonderful treatise on how to enter into a real, meaningful, eternal, loving relationship. And it just happens to be set on a battlefield where millions of people are about to get killed in a most horrific battle. I mean, guys are out there with swords and bows and arrows, and they're just up close and personal, hacking each other to death, and the blood is running like rivers. And brothers are killing brothers, and it's just unimaginable what's going to happen here. And this is the scene in which the Bhagavad-gita is spoken. Because, why? Why does it have to be like that? Because we're so stubborn that until we're completely crushed, we won't make that inward journey, most of us, you know? We won't do what's necessary to really see what's really going on, to ask those hard questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Why am I suffering? Why is there so much suffering in the world? What can be done about it? These questions, this is what distinguishes the humans from the animals, is the ability, the advanced consciousness where you can ask these questions. So now that you have this human form of life, you have this opportunity to finally make a solution to all this suffering. And the wonderful thing is that you don't have to wait until you're dead to enjoy the benefits of it. Because the nature of what Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad-gita is called bhakti. Bhakti means there's no real English equivalent, but the closest one is devotion. By developing a devotional relationship with God, with Krishna, then we actually are in harmony with our real position, our real essence, our real function. And then we can actually feel peace and pleasure. And why is this? It's like we talked about this universe, right? All these things are happening. Where's it all coming from? You ask the material scientist, oh, well, there was this, somehow or another, there was this big bang, and this matter exploded and it started expanding out, and this and that happened, and then there was somehow or another, there was a primordial soup, and in this primordial soup, it got stirred up and heated, and maybe the lightning struck at just the right time, and the chemicals got agitated, and it created life. And somehow or another, that little life form that accidentally happened reproduced. And then somehow or another, it reproduced again. And every time it reproduced, somehow it got better. You don't see that anywhere in nature. They cannot repeat it. Science means that you can take something and you can repeat it, right? If everybody does the same steps, they'll get the same result. That's what science is. That's a scientific process. Yet, they cannot create life. But they say they just happened. It was an accident. They're saying that you have no value. You were just an accident. You were just a chemical composition that somehow accidentally came into being, and at some point is going to stop working. They don't know why. First of all, they don't know why something becomes alive. Then they don't know why it dies, right? They can't explain that. But no, that's not the case. And we all know it's not the case. We all know it in the core of our heart that it's not the case. We know we're not just a chemical reaction. We know that we have an identity, that we're a person. And as a person, we're seeking relationships. You can't deny it. You can try, but it won't last very long. So Krishna comes. Most people's concept of God is very limited. But God is, when we say God is the source of everything, what does that really mean? It means that everything is related to him, right? Just like if you have a light bulb in your light fixture and you turn on the switch, what happens? Nobody knows?
It's a little shock when it doesn't.
The light comes out of the light bulb, right?
Yep, the circuit's complete.
The circuit is complete. So all these little photons are emanating out of this light bulb. Those photons cannot exist without the light bulb, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that light bulb is the source of all that light. So similarly, all these living entities that are in all these different bodies, whether it's your body or my body or the bug's body or that mosquito that's biting you or that little fire ant that's causing the whelps on your belly when it bites you, right? All these living entities have that relationship with God. It's an eternal relationship. It cannot be erased. It is the fact. That is the way things are. You have a relationship with God. And because God is a spiritual being, we are also spiritual beings, and we are part and parcel of God. So we have the same qualities as God. But the difference is we're very small and he's very big. And just like those photons with a light bulb, the light bulb creates the photons, but the photons can't create the light bulb. You understand?
Yeah.
Right? We can't create God. We are not God. You know, and as much as we want to meditate or whatever, we're not going to become God through meditation. Through meditation, we can realize our real relationship with God, how we're part and parcel of him, how we have an eternal relationship with him. But we cannot become God, just like the photon can't become the light bulb. So how do we do that? We find ourselves in this material world. We're born into this society. We have these parents. We go to these schools. And people tell us this and they tell us that. But they don't tell us what we really need to know. What we really need to know is how do I reestablish my real position, my real function, my real essence. And so Krishna comes and he not only speaks Bhagavad-gita so we can learn that, but he also performs all these wonderful pastimes so that we can see what real loving exchanges, real loving relationships are like. So in his early pastimes, when he was living in Vrindavan as a cowherd boy, he has all these amazing, wonderful, loving relationships with the people in Vrindavan. And those are actually the highest relationships, the highest spiritual relationships. But there is so much variety. God is not limited. We can't limit God. So there's actually 5 basic types of relationships you can have with God. There is a relationship of neutrality, where you're aware of his position, his essence, of his existence, but you're just aware of it, and that's it. The next one is a relationship of servitorship, where I'm actually engaging in an active relationship as a servant of God. You can also have a relationship of friendship. This is the relationship that Arjuna had. He was Krishna's friend. And they joked with each other, and they teased each other, and they fought with each other, you know. Not mean fighting, but play fighting, like friends do, right? Very intimate relationship, but on a kind of like sort of equal levels with each other, right? Arjuna wasn't thinking of Krishna as God. Arjuna's just thinking Krishna is a far out guy. Yeah. He's beautiful. He's intelligent. He's so powerful. He's so caring. I love this guy. You know, he's wonderful, you know. But he doesn't think of him as God. He just thinks that this is my best friend, man, my best friend forever. And in that case, it's true because their relationship is eternal, because it's not based on a material body. They have an eternal spiritual relationship as Krishna and Arjuna. And then you have a relationship of parental love. You can actually have God as your child. What a concept is that? You can actually take care of God. You can protect God. Help raise him up, feed him. Teach him how to do things, It's an amazing concept. And it's a very sweet relationship. But if you're thinking this guy's God, it spoils everything, right? So you have to be in the illusion that, oh, this is my child. And then there's the conjugal relationship, where you actually have Krishna, you actually have God as your beloved. And this is the most intimate relationship one can have, where you're actually like a young man and a young woman having loving affairs, but without all of the perversions that we have in this world. Most people in this world, unfortunately, they don't understand what love is. And most people think that the opposite of love is hate, right? I either love this person or I hate that person. And they're polar opposites, right? But that's actually not the case. The opposite of love is actually lust. And what is the difference between love and lust? Love is based on I'm giving something to someone I care about. This is a loving relationship. I want to give something to my beloved. And in the highest forms of love, in the deepest loves, in the purest form of love, there's no self-interest whatsoever. You're lost in serving that person that you love so much that you never think about yourself. Whereas what is lust? Lust is just the opposite of that. Lust is, what can I get, right? I'm just trying to suck everything in. Everything's about me. I'm the center of my universe. If this is pleasing to me, it's good. If this is displeasing to me, it's bad, right? Everything is in relation to me. And your senses all report this to you, right? You look out of your eyes and you see, yes, everything is in relation to me. Yeah. And if this is my child, then that child is special. But if it's somebody else's child, then who cares? Right? And if it's my house, then it's worth protecting. But if it's somebody else's house that gets burned up in the forest fire or whatever, too bad, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, right? So this is our problem. This is our disease, is that we're self-centered. And as long as you're self-centered, it's impossible to have true love. Because love is based on giving, not taking. So Krishna comes to this world to teach us how to actually love. And in the process, he does a bunch of other things.
Right.
He also wipes out a bunch of bad guys and does a lot of different things and whatever. But, basically, he's come here to teach us how to love and to re-invite us to give up this world of self-centeredness, of lust, anger, greed, and enter into that spiritual realm of pure transcendental love. This is why Krishna comes to the planet. This is why Krishna speaks the Bhagavad-gita. This is bhakti yoga. Yoga means union. And what does union mean? Union means harmony, right? I've linked up in my actual position. And when I'm linked up in my actual position of a loving relationship with God, then I'm in my actual position. That is real yoga. Nowadays, people think yoga is simply stretching exercises, right? Actually, those stretching exercises have nothing to do, well, very little to do with yoga. Most of them were developed about 150 years ago in Sweden. They didn't even come from India. They have nothing to do with the Vedas. The only asanas that were used in the Vedic yoga system were simple asanas to help keep the body together so that you could meditate without being too distracted. You learn to sit in the full lotus position and with the spine straight so you can bring the chi up through the different chakras. And the idea is that you can actually leave through the top chakra in the top of the skull and merge into the Brahma Jyoti. But you have to do that. Once you do that, your body's got to still be there when you're ready to come back, things like that. So all these asanas were meant just for developing as an aid to your meditation. So where were we going with this? Anyway.
This is the way it goes. It's all good.
So yoga, we're talking about yoga and what yoga really means. So yoga actually means becoming resituated in a loving relationship with God. Now, God is unlimited, People want to have different relationships. I mean, you look at, we're all kind of getting up there in age, right?
Yeah.
For myself anyway, right? When my wife was young, the Beatles were just coming out, right? And there was Beatlemania. You guys remember Beatlemania? Were you around for that? Right?
New York.
People they'd see these guys and they would just freak out, right? Everybody just scream and run and chase them. They'd try to go to concerts and play, and the people in the stands were screaming so loud that they couldn't even hear the music. That's why they actually stopped touring, because they got tired of going and playing to just a bunch of people who weren't listening to them. They decided to record music in the studio instead. But what is this desire, to honor, to worship somebody like that? Right? We have that. Where does that come from? Huh? Where does it come from? Why is it there? It's there because that's part of our natural position.
It was at that time, it was really, you wanted to be part of something bigger, which is exactly what it is, wanting to be part of something greater. And that's being part of the divine.
Right.
Yeah.
And what can be bigger than Krishna? What can be bigger than God? And we all already have that, right?
Uh-huh.
But unfortunately, somehow or another, we've become envious of God. How it happened, who knows? But this material world is the place where people who don't want to have that intimate, loving relationship with God can go and not have to have that relationship. Because love is based on what? Free will, right? Love has to be given. It can't be taken. It can't be forced. In this material world, what do they put up as the highest thing? Is that intimate, loving, sexual relationship between a young man and a young woman, right? They put this up as the great ideal. And what's the most abominable thing? Is rape. It's the same physical activity, right? The same physical thing is happening. But on one hand, it's a very wonderful, sweet thing. On the other hand, it's the most abominable thing, the most horrible thing that can happen, right? The physical activity is the same. What's different?
Intention.
The intention, huh?
Go.
The consciousness, right?
Yeah.
One person's giving, right? One person's giving someone their love. And the natural expression of that in this material world is the sexual act, a lot of times, right? The other person is taking. It's a power thing, right? I'm trying to use that person. I'm trying to abuse that person. I'm trying to get something from that person, right? So, love cannot be forced. Love has to be given. It's free will. You guys see that movie? What was it? What was the guy? Jim Carrey, right?
There's millions of
Bruce Almighty. Remember Bruce Almighty, the movie Bruce Almighty? You guys see that with Jim Carrey?
No.
No.
Oh,
Is that the one where he's trapped in a TV show? No, that's a different one.
Bruce Almighty. So Jim Carrey is this guy, and he's in this relationship with, what's her name? Whatever her name.
We have no clue.
And Morgan Freeman is God, of all people.
Oh, yeah, I remember some clip of that.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, I might have seen that.
the whole thing is that Jim Carrey, the Jim Carrey character wants to have this loving relationship with the Jennifer Aniston character, but they're not connecting because he's more concerned about his career and da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And so God gives him his powers for a while.
I did see that.
He goes out and he starts doing, he gets, becomes the top news anchor, and he's doing all these things and he's answering all these prayers and he's screwing everything up and making a mess. But it all comes down to the fact that what was really important was his loving relationship with his girlfriend. And he says, I've got all the power of God, but I can't make her love me, right? And Morgan Freeman says, welcome to my world. All these people are my eternal parts and parcels. We have this natural, eternal loving relationship, and none of these guys want to have that relationship. They want to pretend I don't exist, right? Or they want to put me in some little box, right? And they want to make me their waiter. Oh, God, let my football team win the game today, right? Or let me get the promotion I want at work, right? Or let me get that parking place at the mall so I can do my Christmas shopping. God is our servant, right? He does things for us. And when he's finished doing things, we forget about him until we need something else. Oh, hey, you, come here. I can use some help over here, This is a perverted relationship. We're trying to take God's position. And because of that, we're not happy. We're not happy. So Krishna comes and he displays all these wonderful loving relationships in Vrindavan with the cowherd men and women of Vrindavan. And then he does that for like 15 or 20 years. And then he goes and he says, no, I got to get to work. And he goes and wipes out all these bad guys. And the amazing thing is that, Arjuna's lamenting, all these people are get killed on this battlefield. And Krishna says, you know what? You're not killing anybody. I've already killed everyone. It's God who is killing everyone on this planet. Right? He's the one that set it up. If you're bummed that you're dying, he's the one to point the finger at, because he's the one that made it that way. But it's not his fault. We're the ones that came to this world. We're the ones that are rejecting him, not the other way around. God is always inviting us back to come join him in this festival of love, this loving exchange. This is what Krishna wants. He simply wants to have loving relationships with us, but we're rejecting him. We don't want to have him in our life. He's just too big. Right? There's no space for us. There's this little story, kind of illustrates the point. When Krishna was on the planet Vrindavan, he would go out in the morning, they'd take care of the cows, and he'd go out with his boyfriends, and they'd be playing in the forest and chasing the frogs and this and that while they're tending the cows, and stealing each other's lunches and hiding it from each other and passing them back and forth and making all these games up and whatever. And they'd take these round fruits, bale fruits, and they'd use it like a ball and they'd play catch. And so they're playing catch one day, and Krishna's throwing the ball, and he's making all these amazing catches and throws and stuff like that. And everybody going, wow, Krishna, that was a great catch, you know. And, wow, that was a good throw, Krishna. And everybody's just, because he's the best. That's who God is. He's the best at everything. But there's this one cowherd boy. He's thinking, well, you know, that was a pretty amazing catch I made over there. Nobody said anything about it, you know. And that was a pretty good throw I made over there. Nobody said anything about it. And he's starting to get just this little seed, this little spark of enviousness of Krishna. And then Krishna throws him the ball. And it's a bad throw. It goes way over his head. He's saying, wow, what a bad throw Krishna made. And he runs down to try to find it. And he goes down by the river. He's looking at all the bushes and can't find that ball anywhere. And he's looking and he's looking and he's going further and further down the riverbank. And where's that ball? Man, Krishna really threw that ball far, man. What a bad throw that Krishna made. And then he's just digging and finding. All of a sudden he hears this, hello. And he looks up. And there's this young girl standing there. He says, what are you doing? I'm trying to find this ball. Oh, well, maybe I can help you find it. And so she helps him. They start looking for the ball and they start talking and this and that. And after a while, they kind of forget about the ball and get hungry and they go off. She says, well, my house is over here. And they go and they get something to eat and they talk. And next thing you know, they're getting married and they got a few kids, a house, and they got a cow and everything's great. They got the garden out front and life is good. And then it starts to rain. And then it rains some more. And then it keeps raining. And the river starts to rise and gets higher and higher. And the next thing you know, the farm animals are getting washed down the river. And now the water's coming up in the house. And they're climbing up on the roof trying to get away from the water. And he's trying to pull his kids up on the house with him, and they get swept away down the river. And then it's just him and his wife are up on the house, and they're cold and they're shivering, and the water is getting higher and higher, and then she gets washed away. And now the whole house is about to wash down the river. And the guy goes, Krishna! And he comes to, and he's there on the riverbank. And there's that ball. And he picks up the ball and looks at it. And then all of a sudden he hears a voice behind him, and it's Krishna saying, "What took you so long to find that ball?" So it's like that. Somehow or another, we become envious of Krishna. He's so wonderful. And we wanted to live apart from him. But at some point, we're going to realize that we're never going to be happy unless we reestablish that loving relationship with him. And when we do that, and we call on him to please let me come home, he'll be there and welcome us with open arms. So this is what the Bhagavad-gita is really about. How to come to that point where we can give up our enviousness of God, reestablish our lost loving relationship with God. And once you do that, everything else falls into place, right? Because if I love God, I naturally love all of God's parts and parcels. I love all of God's children. I'm in a consciousness where I'm no longer thinking about myself. I'm simply thinking about giving. And in that giving consciousness, I'm experiencing this amazing happiness that I never experienced in the material world. And life is good. And the wonderful thing is that you can come to that consciousness while you're still on this planet and still in this body. It's kind of like, remember the Wizard of Oz? Or my
Yeah, that's
always Dorothy's trip, right? The lady was going to take her dog. She ran away from home, right? And then she has this whole thing. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to be there. But then she goes through all these experiences and she realizes, actually, I want to go home. And what is the good witch? What was her name? Glenda. Says you can go home at any time.
Yeah, just
You
click
had to want it. Just click the slippers, say, I want to go home, right? And she clicks the slippers and she goes home and everything's cool again, right? And that's kind of like our position. We have to come to that point where we want to go back to Krishna. When I got initiated by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, back when I was 20 years old and thought I knew everything. Oh, I was so much older then, I'm younger then than now. The process of initiation was a very wonderful experience. But as part of it, you get a new name. You give up your old name and it's called a second birth. And so like a father, he names you. So he gives me my japa beads and he says, after he asked me if I'm willing to follow his instructions, and I say yes. And he said, so your name is Drsya Krsna. He says, my Guru Maharaj taught me that it is not so important to be able to see God, but to live your life in such a way that God will want to see you. This is Drsya Krsna. Drsya Krsna is one who's always seen by God. And so I'm thinking, wow, a cool name, right? Drsya Krsna, you know, the one who's always seen by God. And so I'm paying my respects down on the floor. And then I hear this thundering voice, Das. And I look up and he's pointing at me. And Das means servant. It says, you are the servant of the one who is always seen by God. And this is actually our real position. Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto that he who says he's my devotee is not my devotee. But he who says he's the devotee of my devotee, he is actually my devotee. And this is the nature of love, is that it's totally the opposite of being self-centered. And you have all these wonderful, in Vrindavan, you have certain gopis. Gopis are the young cowherd girls. They go out and they pick flowers. These certain girls are really good at finding the most beautiful flowers. And they go and they pick these flowers, right? They give them to these other girls that, they know how to make the garlands. And they make these amazing, beautiful garlands. And then they give those garlands to this other lady. And this other girl gives it to Radharani, who offers it to Krishna, right? And these other girls, they go out and they find these wonderful places along the bank of the river. Oh, this is a wonderful place for Radha and Krishna to meet, right? And they go and they take that place and they clean it up and they decorate it with all these nice flowers and make a nice little sitting place, right? And also that Krishna and Radha can come there and have this wonderful time together. So they're the servant of the servant of the servant. And with each, in the material world, being a servant's a bummer, right? It means you're low man on the totem pole. It means somebody else can tell you what to do and take advantage of you, right? But in the spiritual relationships, it's just the opposite. When you're down a few levels, it's just that much sweeter, because now you're seeing all these other loving exchanges up and above you that you get to witness as well. And because you're not thinking of yourself, you're just saying, wow, this is so wonderful seeing these loving relationships going on. And I'm, engaging and being part of that. So you can come to that platform, but it means we have to give up that little seed of envy that we have in our heart. We have to give up that self-centeredness. And this is done through purification. And that's what mantra meditation is. Krishna is not only all-powerful, he's also all-purifying. And because Krishna is absolute, he is non-different than his name. So when you say the name Krishna, that sound vibration, Krishna, is not a material sound vibration. That is actually Krishna himself. And so when I say Krishna, I'm associating with Krishna. And the more I associate with Krishna, then it has this purifying effect on my consciousness. And all the dirty things get washed out of my heart over time. And as these dirty things get washed out of my heart, these are called aparads. Then I find that my natural loving relationship with Krishna reestablishes itself. And I experience the true happiness and love that I'm looking for. Whether you're this body or not, it doesn't matter. And your body's still going to be experiencing certain bummers, right? You're still going to get old. You're still going to get diseased. You're still going to be forced to leave this body at some point. But because you have that higher connection, that spiritual connection, you're not really attached to this body. And so it's not a freak out. It's just like a pair of clothes, right? When this shirt's worn out, I throw it away and get another one. It's not a big deal, right? So it's like that. If we have something else that we have a real loving relationship, then all these other relationships, if they're in conjunction with that, if they're in harmony with that loving relationship with God, then they all become that much more wonderful. And if they're not in harmony with that, they become less important. So you actually experience freedom. You become free from all these pushings, these things that we have that push us, right? The advertisers, They're always making us think we need this and we need that, right? Got to have the latest fashion. Got to have the latest hairstyle, right? Got to have the greatest cell phone. You got to have the newest TV. You got to watch the latest movie. One thing after another, but none of them ever satisfy us. So you'll find that if you actually develop these spiritual relationships, all these other desires, they drop away. And then when you find yourself full of love, what do you want to do? You want to give it to everyone else that you meet, right? And then people can actually trust you because you're full. You don't need anything from me, right? You don't need anything from me. You're already full in your relationship with God. So now I can trust you because I know you're not going to rip me off because I don't have anything to give you that you want. You already have everything you want. You're already full in your loving relationship with God. So this is the qualification of a bona fide spiritual master. A bona fide spiritual master is a person who is full in their love for God. And because they're experiencing that transcendental loving relationship with God, they don't need anything from you. You can't give them anything. They've already got everything that they could ever want and more. So therefore, you can trust that person. And because that person is also fixed in love for Krishna, love of God, they're feeling the complete compassion for everyone. They're seeing the suffering of all the people in this world that are caught up in all these mind games and this and that. And it breaks their heart because they know that, like Dorothy, all they have to do is reawaken that desire to go back home to God, right? And so they want to help people out. So if you want to know how to take the Bhagavad Gita and apply it in today's age, in today's circumstances, and to use it to help benefit the world, this is how you do it. So that was a long-winded introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. Hope that wasn't.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Very nice, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or anything you wanted to discuss? Otherwise, we can just chant for a couple of minutes.
Did Krishna talk about coming back to the world?
What do you mean? And what, him coming back?
Yeah.
Or you coming back?
No, I just want to know how we have to come back. But Krishna coming back, like when he appeared, he was coming into the world that, where there was great stress and confusion. So did he ever speak about coming back again?
Yes, he did. And it's actually predicted in the different scriptures. And this is the age of Kali Yuga. It started about 5,000 years ago when Krishna left the planet. And Krishna appears in Kali Yuga as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he appeared about 550 years ago in India as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came as Krishna's devotee. So in Bhagavad Gita, the end of Bhagavad Gita, the conclusion is just surrender to Krishna, develop your relationship with him, learn to love him. So then Lord Chaitanya comes as Krishna to teach us actually how to learn to love Krishna. And so that's Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. They appeared in India in Navadvip about 550 years ago. So he has come back already.
Got it. Okay.
And when Lord Chaitanya came, he explained that the easiest way to reestablish your relationship with Krishna is through chanting his names. And he's the one that inaugurated this Sankirtan movement, this chanting as a means of purification to actually purify our hearts to come to the point where we can actually experience real love again. So when we chant Chaitanya or Nityananda or Nitai Gauranga, these are names of Krishna as he appeared in the role of a devotee to teach us how to love Krishna. He will come again at the end of Kali Yuga in the incarnation as Kalki. Kalki's a pretty heavy incarnation. Just like there's different times of day, right? You got morning when the sun comes up, then you got the daytime, then you got the evening, then the sun disappears at night, right? There's also different cycles that the universe goes through. These are called yugas. They're very long time spans. And so there's the Satya Yuga. In the Satya Yuga, it's primarily in the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, people are truthful, they're intelligent, they live long lives, they're honest, they're caring. Then you have the Treta Yuga, where all those things are reduced a little bit. And then you have Dwapara Yuga, where things are reduced even more. And then you have Kali Yuga, which is the age we're in now. It's known as the age of chaos, quarrel, and confusion. And it just gets worse and worse. However, the first 10,000 years of Kali Yuga are considered the golden age of Kali Yuga. And that's because Lord Chaitanya appears and he gives us this chanting of the Sankirtan movement. And so there's a lot of people make a lot of spiritual progress through the Sankirtan movement. But then after a while, that kind of fades out and the modes of ignorance get stronger and stronger to the point where people just degraded to the point of anyone who claims to be a devotee of God is hunted down and killed, and it's very horrible. And it gets to the point where there's no point of going on anymore. Society becomes so degraded. God comes back as Kalki and he simply puts everybody out of their misery. Rides around on a big white horse with a sword and just finishes everybody off. Says, okay, let's wipe the slate clean and start over. This isn't happening anymore. So it's a cycle. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there. I don't expect all this to stick. You'll understand what you understand. Understanding is this amazing gift. How do you understand anything? Right? Where does your intelligence come from? All these things are gifts from God. And according to your desire, Krishna is there. He will serve you. Krishna, loving exchanges, just like we love Krishna, so we're always trying to serve him. He loves you, so he's always trying to serve you. You wanted to be separate from him? He says, okay, here's the material world. You can go be separate from me. But anytime you want to come back, I'll be there waiting for you. So he's there in your heart. It's the Paramatma, always listening, always inviting you back, always offering instruction, and guiding you to fulfill your desires. But when you get tired of this place, when you get tired of birth, death, old age, and disease, you want to do something else for a change, he's there to welcome you back and to help you get back. So I'm just throwing a lot of information out there. You may be able to understand some of it now, and if you continue on this study, we can make this as often as you guys want to. We can explore the Bhagavad. I tell you, it's wonderful to go through the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. It takes about 6 months, but I've done it a number of times with people, and it's just beautiful.